Yo, good afternoon. Welcome to the MLB Strategy Show right here on the Stochastic YouTube channel. I'm Dave Loughran at Lafayette_D. We got 5 games today starting at 6:40 Eastern time, not 7:05, 7:07, 7:10, any of that, 6:40. So be sure that you are aware of that. You're setting lineups, or if you're tuning in for the deeper dive, any of that good stuff. But anyway, how you guys doing? I'm Dave Loughran, Lafayette_D, joined by Adam Scherer at Ship My Money DFS. 5 games today. Thought this was going to be at 10 a.m., man. Messed my day up a little bit, but we're here. That's okay. How you feeling?
Yeah, good. Been up for several hours because I also thought the show was at 10 a.m. So I went to bed early last night. I slept really well. Actually slept straight up to my clock and then got up and found out that the show was at noon.
Yeah, well, here we are. This is weird. I'm not used to doing shows at this time. It feels awkward.
It throws off like your routine. Like it's
big time.
It's just like an awkward. I'm still trying to get used to it too because I switched to doing more baseball shows, but like then occasionally I still have the basketball shows too. So it's like, or like today I thought it was at 10. So it's like, yeah, I need to get like noon across the board or 10 across the board. Like it throws me off jumping back and forth.
Yeah, it's weird. You're used to the 10 and then whatever. That's okay. No basketball today, just baseball. Interesting slate. We're going to jump into all of this. 5 games today. And I'm just looking at the top stacks tool. There isn't anyone that like jumps off the page. We have, of the 5 games on this night slate, you have 6 teams that have a 9+% top stack percentage. Nobody north of 17%. And then on the top pitchers tool, I mean, this is where you got to go for your info. I'm not surprised to see that Nick Lodolo is getting as high of the percentage of top 2 that he is. That dude's just been an absolute monster. Last time he was out, he faced the Phillies, 12 strikeouts. He's going to see him again tonight, Adam. That looks like another wildly appealing spot. And amazingly, even at 46% ownership, his leverage score is basically neutral.
Yeah, just a really, really good strikeout pitcher. Solid enough matchup. We know the Phillies are banged up right now. Should be a good team overall, by the end of the year. But Hoskins is out for the year. Harper's not back yet. So you have a watered down lineup compared to what it normally will be. If you can, navigate your way through Turner, Schwarber, Realmuto, Castellanos, Bohm 1 through 5, it drops off pretty significantly once you get down to Josh Harrison, Sosa, Stott, Pache, whoever's at the bottom of the lineup. So it's not as dangerous a matchup as it normally or as it will be later on in the year, or as the Phillies thought it would be this year. But the top can certainly do damage. But Lodolo, just a very good strikeout pitcher, very reasonably priced at 9,400 on DraftKings as well. On FanDuel, he's 10.8, so he is $900 more expensive than the next closest pitcher there. But he's still projected to be the highest owned pitcher, and he still has the highest chance of being the top scoring pitcher. So clearly a good play, regardless of site. DraftKings, a better play, just because you do have to roster 2 pitchers, and he is much less expensive than he is on FanDuel. Going back to the start of last season, 30.9% strikeout percentage is the highest on the slate. He is just a really good pitcher.
He is. Yeah, he can strike out lefties and righties. You're probably only going to see a few lefties, but even with Schwarber, it's like, yeah, you got to get past Schwarber. He's faced 17 lefties this year, struck out around 50% of the time. Like last year, he struck out 31% of the time against same-handed pitchers. So like if Schwarber's not hitting a home run off of Lodolo, he's probably striking out.
Yeah, I mean, 269 pitches thrown to lefties since coming up last year. Not only has he struck out 40.6% of them, he's allowed an expected ISO of 0.17. His expected WOBA allowed is 179. Now, granted, this is clearly a small sample size, and it's probably going to increase a bit, but this isn't even a case of, a lefty that's good at getting strikeouts and gives up power, especially to left-handed hitters. He's been essentially unhittable by lefties. Righties have a 164 ISO, 159 expected ISO. Nothing, glaring there either, but they at least have a chance against him. But lefties have pretty much just been useless in this matchup.
There's still some pop. There's still some power in this lineup, but ultimately, just looking over all of the pitchers available to us today, I don't think there's not a better high-end pitcher than Lodolo, right? Like I can't think of anyone, particularly given the other matchups that some of these guys have.
Yeah, no, it's not a great pitching slate. I mean, it is only a 5-game slate, so clearly your options are going to be limited.
Yeah.
But like I said, Lodolo's 30.9% strikeout percentage is the highest of anybody starting today. But then when you narrow it down by slate, like the second highest is Jeffrey Springs, but he's in one of the early games facing the Red Sox, so you're not going to him. Joe Ryan, 25.7% strikeout percentage is the second highest on this slate. So you're talking about, a pitcher whose strikeout percentage going back to last year is 5 points below Nick Lodolo, and it's not like Joe Ryan's got a good matchup. He's going up against the Yankees. So you just don't really have anybody in the ballpark of Lodolo in terms of strikeout stuff.
All right. And by the way, if you guys are unaware, we already moved on to game 1. Just a nice little, organic segue into Lodolo here. But if you haven't done so yet, take a single second, hit that thumbs up, show us some love here on the Strategy Show. We got no basketball. We're hanging out. We're watching baseball. It's a beautiful day today here in Pennsylvania. I got to say, man, weather's just fantastic today.
Yeah, I think it's it was like 85 or something yesterday here.
Yeah, it's hot as shit here today, but it was great in the morning. Yesterday was nice. Listen,
yeah, 84 right now. It's supposed to get up to 86 today.
It's crazy.
I told you, spring does not exist.
Not for you, it doesn't. For me, after these couple of days, it's going to be like 60s, which is perfect. Mid 60s, low 70s.
Yeah, like Yeah, right around 70 is always perfect. And actually, it's going to be the same here. So we do actually, I guess, get spring after this. But yeah, it wasn't even just me. Like I went, I had like an hour to kill yesterday. So I just went and grabbed a drink, and the bartender walked outside and comes back in. And she's just like, what the hell happened this spring? Like I'm sweating. It's hot. And it's like, all right, well, at least it's not just me that like feels like it just goes straight to summer.
No, it's definitely not just you. Also, it's going to be close to 80 degrees in Cincinnati. Not exactly a pitcher-friendly park. I'm fine with that with a guy that like Lodolo, who this year has a 19% swinging strike rate. But on the other side, Bailey Falter, I mean, yeah, he's only made what, 2 starts this season, but last year sub 8 Ks per 9. Strikeout rate was sitting around 21%, which is basically league average. This year it's at 12%. Not a ton to take away from that, but home runs per 9 last year in 16 starts and 20 appearances, 84 innings, 1.71 home runs per 9 for him. So what do you make of this spot today for him and, of course, the Cincinnati Bats?
Yeah, I mean, the saving grace for Falter, I guess, is that he's facing a pretty bad Cincy team. But since he still has nearly a 4.8 implied run total here, favorable hitting conditions in a favorable park, like you were saying, and Falter has had issues with right-handed power since the start of last year, a 217 actual ISO, 201 expected ISO, only a 19% strikeout percentage against righties. And you are going to have plenty of right-handed bats in this lineup. Jonathan India in particular looks good. Spencer Steer has power and is probably hitting towards the top of the order. Tyler Stevenson's a high upside catcher option. You get Myers and Newman that are decent. So while it is a bad team and not a great lineup, there are still spots that you can point to here that look pretty good, in favorable hitting conditions against a pretty mediocre pitcher in Falter.
Bert said, the Colts is from the future. Dude, one off the strata. What'd you say?
That's insane. That's just unbelievable the way he started out this year.
Yeah. By the way, he is in our Discord right now. Answer every single week at noon on Thursday. Steve's in there answering questions from everybody. So if you're a premium sub, yeah. So check it out. Congrats again to the Colts. Making the Stochastic team proud. Not sure people know this, but Steve is part of the Stochastic team, just behind the scenes. Sometimes he does shows. Once in a while, jump on some NFL shows, but usually he's just winning tournaments. Anyway,
I think he's won 3 days in a row. If not, it's like 3 of the last 4.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Any Philly bats do you want to get to here?
So they are sort of interesting in tournaments just because they're only pulling 8% ownership.
There's a lot of righties, probably only 2 lefties today.
Right. You're probably just going to have Schwarber and Stott as far as lefties go. And you do get those same favorable hitting conditions. So that combined with the fact that you are getting some leverage against Lodolo in non-Lodolo lineups, I think the Phillies do make sense. It's still a high upside offense, like we were saying. Turner, Real Muto, Castellanos, Baum as a 4-man, and then just throw in somebody else and hope that you run good on that one. But yeah, like Lodolo in terms of the power allowed to righties since last year has been pretty average. Like I said, about a 160 expected ISO, about a 320 expected WOBA. So it's not like you're talking about one of these pitchers where it's not like Andrew Heaney where he's either striking you out or giving up a home run. It's not to that extent, but he is just sort of average in terms of limiting power. It's just that he strikes you out a lot. So the upside is still there in the spot for the Phillies. I'm surprised that they have a higher top stack percentage than Cincy does, but I think the general point that they are likely to be a bit lower owned than the other similar high upside offenses stands.
All right, let's talk a little Minnesota and New York Yankees here. Brito and Ryan, Joe Ryan on for Minnesota. I actually want to get your initial thoughts on Ryan here today because positive leverage score, 25%, top 2 percentage in the top pitchers tool. If you're wondering why it's top 2 pitcher percentage on DraftKings and only 1 on top pitcher on FanDuel, it's obviously because you play 2 pitchers on DraftKings and only 1 on FanDuel. If you're new to the tools, you're looking at top pitcher, top stacks, and trying to figure that stuff out. But I mean, look, this dude definitely has upside. I don't think there's any denying that. Look at the park. It's not exactly a perfect park for him in this spot, but early in the season, he struck out 35% of the batters he's faced. Very low walk rate. There are a lot of things that stand out that are quality attributes when it comes to Ryan. What do you make of the matchup on both sides as far as hitters go and as far as Ryan goes?
It strikes me as a pretty big boom or bust spot because Ryan is a good pitcher. The thing that really stands out about Ryan as well is that he has very drastic splits. Going back to the start of last season, he has struck out 32% of the right-handed hitters that he's faced. He's only struck out 18.9% of the lefties. Power numbers are, pretty similar. 161 expected ISO to lefties, 153 to righties.
Do you have swinging strike rate on lefties and righties?
16.5% to righties, 10% to lefties.
Okay.
And it's easily explained too. Like typically you're going to see righties be better against righties. That's a given. But when you look at what he throws, he has thrown his slider going back to the start of last year, 30.5% of the time to righties with a 17% swinging strike percentage. He's thrown his changeup 22% to lefties. That's been his primary off-speed pitch, but it only has a 7.5% swinging strike percentage. So you're just not getting those same swings and misses that you are from the slider against righties. So the Yankees projected lineup does have 6 righties in it. Obviously, some of them are very good. LeMahieu's hard to strike out. Judge is a monster. Stanton hits a lot of home runs. Torres, Trevino, and Volpe, the rest of them. So assuming you get a predominantly right-handed lineup, there is a very high ceiling here in terms of strikeouts for Ryan. It just is dangerous because obviously you don't have a lot of margin for error on guys like Judge, Stanton, Rizzo from the left side, likely to be putting the ball in play in Yankee Stadium is never a spot you want to be in as an opposing pitcher. But there are just limited pitching options on the slate. Every pitcher we're going to talk about has some sort of this. You don't have Spencer Strider against the Reds. Obviously, he was pretty average yesterday, but that was just a spot where there was no going into the slate. There was no negative that you could point to on Spencer Strider. Kevin Gausman, sort of the same thing where it was just very obviously a top play. Here, you don't have those same sort of options. And so Joe Ryan does just look good relative to other pitchers on the slate.
Well, you're right, though. Just looking at this, it's only, this year, only a couple starts, but 53% whiffs per swing on the slider to righties.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So if they're swinging at it, there's a good chance they're missing it. But against how many lefties do you think we're going to see in the Yankees lineup today?
Probably 3.
What type of, you mentioned swinging strike rate and you mentioned strikeout rate against lefties. What are the power numbers against opposite handed bats?
Pretty much the same. So expected ISO to lefties since last year is 161, to righties it's 153. Actual ISO to righties is 188, to lefties it's 147. So seemingly he's just kind of run bad against right-handed power, but the power numbers are expected to be pretty much the same. Okay. It's just that lefties are putting it in play more.
Right. But it appears though from a power perspective, he hasn't exactly been awful against lefties either. No,
he's been completely fine against both sides in that regard.
All right. What about the other side of this matchup?
Brito going against the Twins.
Yeah.
7,700 for him. He threw 92 pitches his last time out, I believe. Let me double check that. But 92 pitches against Baltimore last time out, went 5 innings. So we shouldn't really have any concerns about how many pitches they're going to let him throw. He is 20. He's 25. This is his first year in the majors. So he's made 2 starts in the majors now. Last year, 15 starts at AAA, 18 total games, 70 innings pitched, struck out 18.5% of hitters. The bat projects him for a 19% strikeout percentage this year. Zips is at 17.5%. So not likely to give you great strikeout stuff. He is only 7,700, and it is a pitching slate that isn't great. So he is still pulling nearly 20% ownership on DraftKings as an SP2, about a 20% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. There is also a chance that Byron Buxton is out today. He got hurt, I think, running the bases yesterday. They said that had his spot in the batting order come back up, he wasn't going to be able to hit. So pretty good chance that he gets today off, which would certainly make the spot look a little bit better for Brito.
Okay. Wanted to see something here before we move on. And then we can talk about Minnesota bats if there's any interest that you have there. But just looking at this season, no surprise, Philly with the highest K rate against righties so far. Minnesota, 24.5% K rate, 383 plate appearances so far. So, I mean, it seems like an okay matchup. Like you said, there's nothing that really jumps off the page. Do you like Minnesota bats at all?
I don't hate them. This is just a weird slate. It's going to be a lot of just this pitcher's okay. This stack's okay. And that's sort of just, what it is here. We talked about Brito basically being correctly owned. The Twins are pulling 8% ownership with an 8% chance of being the top stack. There's clearly upside against an unproven major league pitcher in Yankee Stadium, but you also just don't have a ton of bats in the Twins lineup that look great, especially if Buxton is out. Like if Correa is in the lineup, you're going to like him as a high upside shortstop option always. Nick Gordon kind of came out of nowhere last year to really hit the ball hard frequently. He's still cheap. He looks good from the left side. You can take shots on Miranda, Trevor Larnach. They did call up Edward Julian yesterday, I believe it was. He is a highly regarded hitting prospect rather. Defense has holes, was reading his scouting report earlier, but he's expected to be a good major league hitter. He is still cheap, probably batting toward the bottom of the order, but there are some spots you can get to on Minnesota, but they don't stand out as a spot or a team that like you're really excited about, I don't think.
I mean, honestly, everything you were saying about this being a weird slate and everything's just kind of okay, perfectly represented in the top stacks tool, right?
Yep.
Like you look at, there's 10 teams on the slate and 7 of them are between 7 and 10% top stack probability. I think the most interesting one though, maybe you could touch on this for a second, just from a game theory standpoint. Since there aren't really any spots that stand out in a huge way. We'll get to Toronto, we'll get to St. Louis, but still nothing like 30% top stack. You look at Philly and yeah, it's a 1.8 positive leverage score, 8% ownership, 10.9% top stack probability. But that leverage isn't necessary. That's not really factoring in that Nick Lodolo is going to be almost 50% owned on this slate either. So while the top stack probability is marginally higher than the ownership, if the Phillies happen to go off, you're possibly wiping out like 40-50% of lineups that have Lodolo.
Right. Yeah. There's definitely added upside there, just in addition to, the Phillies are still a high upside offense. If they do well, you do have, half the field essentially losing right out of the gate. So I mean, obviously that's somewhat baked into the ownership. If Lodolo weren't pulling as much ownership, you could project more ownership to the Phillies, but yeah, that's certainly an added boost for Philadelphia, and to some extent for a team like Minnesota as well, or a team like the Yankees. You still have 25% ownership coming into Ryan. You have 20% coming into Brito. So, you are still knocking off a pretty nice chunk of the field if you stack one of those teams and they do well.
Anything else for Minnesota, New York?
Individually, I do really like Anthony Rizzo. And from a stacking standpoint, I think the Yankees also pretty much just in line with where they should be against Ryan. It goes without saying that Aaron Judge is a good play. Stanton's a good play. But I do really like Rizzo in particular from the left side with the short porch and right, likely to put the ball in play. Same goes for Franchy Cordero. He hit really well in the spring for the Orioles this year. Orioles still just didn't have a spot to keep him because, they're a better team than the Yankees, who have plenty of spots available on their roster. So Cordero went there. He's hit well for the Yankees right out of the gate. This is somebody that was highly regarded as a hitting prospect when he came up. Hasn't really put it together in the majors, but certainly has the talent. And now he's facing a pitcher in Yankee Stadium that doesn't miss a lot of left-handed bats. So individually, Rizzo and Cordero, I think, both set up pretty nicely.
All right, let's talk Detroit and Toronto. Toronto highest top stack probability on the slate. Before we do that, you guys already know, but Bet365 is the sponsor of the MLB Strategy Show, and for very good reason. Because listen, you might be someone that's in our chalkboard, right? In our chalkboard channel, and you love DFS, but you also love betting, and you're sweating your DFS lineups while you're sweating your bets, all that stuff. That's the way it should be, right? By the way, chalkboard's entirely free. All our picks, everything, 100% of the time, always going to be free. We'd love to have you join us, and the platform's awesome. It's better than Discord for betting, no doubt about it, especially since you can sync all your sports books and all the box scores are built into it. Come join us. We're 1,300 plus people right now, thanks to you guys. But Bet365, if you're in Ohio, if you're in New Jersey, if you're in Colorado, or if you're in Virginia, I almost forgot that fourth one, all you got to do is bet $1 and get $200 in bonus bets. Yes, you see Ben Rasa up there pointing that finger that seems abnormally long for the size of his body at this fantastic offer. $1 into 200. Yes, it's that simple. You click the link in the description. We put it down there. Jordan threw it in the chat. If you're in one of those 4 states, the best promo out there. Hands down, it's the best promo you're going to find. It's not bet $10, and if your bet wins, you get 150. It's bet $1, and it doesn't matter if your bet wins or loses. You're getting $200 in bonus bets on the other side, regardless of the result. Think about it. You could run it up to whatever you want. We've had screenshots. I showed them to you in here the other day of what's his name, Gingerhammer going, yeah, in 1 week I turned the dollar promo into $1,447. Might be you, might not be you. Let's say it's not. Let's say you just go on a terrible run and you stink and you lose it all. At the end of the day, you're down one single dollar and you do not lose sleep over it. You go, hey, I had $200 to mess around with and I lost it. That's okay, because all I did was give somebody $1 to get that $200. You deposit 10 when you sign up. It takes 2 minutes to sign up, deposit, and put your bet down. Only has to be $1. That's making $100 per minute. Any other opportunity anywhere else, you're taking advantage of it. So Colorado, Virginia, New Jersey, Ohio, it's something to jump on, hands down. I don't think it'll be here much longer. And I say that with 100% sincerity. I don't think it'll be here long at all. $200 when you bet $1 at Bet365. Link in the description. Link is in the chat. We'll see you guys. And join the chalkboard. Sweat those bets. We got a lot of dudes betting on 365 and chalkboard because they took advantage of a great promo. All right. Detroit and Toronto. Detroit with the very underwhelming implied total here. Not the lowest on the slate. We'll get to Pittsburgh later. But yeah, so now you've got the Detroit Tigers, 3.9 implied total against Toronto at 5.9. How do you want to approach this game from a pitcher standpoint? Like, is Chris Bassett in play for you today as one of the guys you're just going to be rotating in as another? Yeah, he's okay on a 5-game slate.
Yeah, I mean, Bassett's price doesn't make a ton of sense either. 8,200 on DraftKings, 7,300 on FanDuel.
Wow.
He's the second highest owned pitcher on both sites, 28% on FanDuel, 40% on DraftKings, and I have no issue with that. The Tigers are one of the weaker offenses. Bassett, going back to the start of last season, 21.8% strikeout percentage, but overall just a pretty solid pitcher. 3.85 xFIP, 3.88 SIERA. His numbers this year are misleading. He got lit up in his first start against St. Louis. He was fine in his second start, went 6 innings against the Angels, also threw 109 pitches in that start. So that is noteworthy just because Bassett is someone you can typically count on to eat innings and get you fantasy points that way. And if the Mets are going to right out of the gate, just, turn him loose and let him go throw pretty much as many pitches as he can, that is certainly something to keep in mind that's favorable for DFS as well. So in this matchup at these price tags, I have no issue whatsoever with Bassett.
Okay. You have any interest in Spencer Turnbull today?
Not particularly, no.
Okay.
I think this is the first pitcher we've gotten to where it's just like
zero interest.
Yeah.
And yeah, look, he has a positive leverage score, but he also he grades out pretty poorly in the top pitchers. Like, yeah, he's 3% owned, but 8% probability of being a top 2 pitcher on DraftKings. On FanDuel, 6%, 6.8% top pitcher. And of course, where you're only playing one pitcher there, things get a little bit interesting. So yeah, I don't really think we need to dive too deep into that, but we are definitely going to need to spend some time on Toronto today. I mean, you're talking about a team that currently has 16.9% top stack probability. And honestly, you're looking at it, they're not wildly overowned on a slate like this either, but they're also pretty expensive. Like on DraftKings alone, you've got 4 bats that are $5K and up.
Yeah, and I think I misspoke. I think I said the Mets were letting Bassett go deep.
I knew I wasn't gonna. I knew what you meant.
I obviously meant the Blue Jays. But yeah, good spot for Toronto. And one thing that stands out from the top stacks tool is that so we have the stack score as well. Like normally when we reference the tool, we're talking about ownership and top stack percentage. But top stack percentage is just how often the team is going to be the top stack. It doesn't factor in how easy they are to roster. Stack score is a combination of top value percentage and top stack percentage. We still have Toronto slightly edging out Cincinnati as the highest stack score, even though they are more expensive. So it's another spot where even though they are the highest owned team, I think it's just fully warranted. 16.9% chance of being the top stack, 16.4% ownership share, but also the highest top stack percentage. So I think that all makes sense. Turnbull didn't pitch much in the majors last year. Going back, still a limited sample since the start of the 2021 season, a 19% strikeout percentage to righties, only a 131 expected ISO, only a 136 expected ISO to lefties. If you go back to the start of the 2020 season, you get a little bit bigger sample, 148 expected ISO to righties, 140 to lefties. So he has typically done a decent job of limiting power. It's just
he doesn't give up a lot of homers at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But it's just he doesn't strike guys out. And now you're facing this very, very power heavy Toronto lineup in the Rogers Center or whatever they're calling it now. I think it's still the Rogers Center. Where, it's a favorable place for them to hit. I'm just always willing to take my chances on guys like Springer, Bichette, Guerrero, Varsho, Chapman. If you tell me that they're going to be in a favorable hitter's park and be allowed to put the ball in play, I'm always willing to take my chances there.
Yeah, Turnbull's weird because, like, you look at last year, he made 9 starts. He had a 3.7 xFIP, which is like not bad. It's just he's never going to be a good DFS pitcher at all. But he's a pretty high ground ball pitcher, like 57% ground ball rate, not a ton of hard contact. I don't know. This is one of those weird spots, I guess, tonight where I wouldn't be shocked if he gives up like 5 runs and it's on singles and it's just not I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Clearly it's a very, very good spot, but not a guy that gives up a ton of power, as you pointed out. He really isn't.
Yeah, but I mean, the flip side to that too is always, if you can just get some runners on base, knock him out of the game, take your chances with
against Detroit's bullpen. Sure.
Especially if it's a situation where they're down several runs, not bringing in their best relievers.
No doubt.
It's not the same as 5-6 years ago where getting the bullpens was advantageous. Now a lot of times it sucks. Like a lot of times the starter is the worst pitcher you're going to face. But it's still, I would prefer Toronto if Spencer Turnbull didn't get strikeouts and he gave up a bunch of power. The dude also probably wouldn't be pitching in the major league, so it probably wouldn't be an option. Still very happy to get to Toronto. Still nearly a 6 implied run total for this team.
We've seen it before where there have been some pitchers kind of on the last leg, and they were basically just batting practice. I forget who it was that I used to always talk about. There was one at this at the same time, probably back, maybe you can help me, probably 2018 or so. And it was a bald. Oh, Chris Tillman for a while.
Yeah.
Remember the Tillman days?
After his shoulder injuries? Yeah.
Oh my God.
Was bad.
And there was one on the Cleveland Indians too.
I don't
at
remember
the same time. Tomlin? Was it
Josh Tomlin? Yeah.
Dude, Josh Tomlin for a while was terrible.
Yeah, because he was a fly ball pitcher anyway, and then for a while he just was giving up like an unbelievable amount of home runs.
Man, those were the days.
Yeah.
There was
Chris Tillman days, like that was rough.
All right, I just want to pull this up real quick and see if I can find it.
I mean, Jose Urena now is sort of in this boat.
All right. So, like in 2016, dude, Tomlin allowed, where was this year? 2016, 36 home runs. Just absolutely 36 home runs that year with a strikeout rate that was at like 15%. 16% strikeout rate and 36 home runs allowed.
Yeah. A couple people said Patrick Corbin now. That's a decent one.
That's a great one, actually. Yeah.
Madison Bumgarner's getting pretty close.
Yeah, but what a career.
Yeah. I just thoroughly.
But that's what I'm saying though. Some guys, once they get to this point, there's not much left. I was trying to find the Tillman year. I thought you would have known since he was in Baltimore his entire career, like the one horrible season. But yeah, I can't find it. Anyway, let's get 2017. Guess what his home runs per 9 was in 93 innings, 19 starts. 2.32. He threw 93 innings that year and allowed 24 home runs in 93 innings. It was just terrible. Anyway,
that's awful.
Any other thoughts on Toronto here or Detroit before we move on?
Nope.
Pittsburgh, St. Louis. Pirates have the lowest total of any team going today. 3.5 going up against St. Louis. St. Louis, 5.3 implied runs. Huge favorites here. What are they? Yeah, minus 255 on the money line. Like for context, Toronto's minus 230. So Vince Velasquez, Jordan Montgomery. Is there any Vince Velasquez exposure that you want? There was a time where Vince Velasquez went out and struck out like 15 Padres. Those days are long over.
Yeah, Vince Velasquez used to be a guy that when he was on the Phillies, I would take hitters against him because he would just fire 97-mile-an-hour fastballs right down the middle that were get launched a decent amount, but the strikeout stuff was there.
Now
Now
boom or bust. Yeah.
Now it's not really the same thing.
He was Francisco Liriano, except Liriano would just walk 8 batters in a row and be out of the game if it wasn't going well.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, going back to the start of last year now for Velasquez, only an 18% strikeout percentage against righties with a 224 expected ISO. He struck out lefties at a 23.8% clip, which obviously is better. Still a 191 expected ISO there. In a tough matchup against the Cardinals, I don't really see any reason to be getting to Velasquez here.
What about Montgomery today? Solid spot against Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Montgomery looks really good. He's pulling the third most ownership on DraftKings, slightly behind Bassett and behind Lodolo. On FanDuel, he's pulling the third most ownership as well. He is $2,100 more than Bassett there, $1,400 less than Lodolo. But yeah, it's a good spot. And Montgomery's a good pitcher. He's not a great strikeout pitcher, 22% since the start of last year. But this is also someone that I think you could potentially see get some more strikeouts. The Yankees kind of just wanted him getting ground balls. I think the Cardinals have to this point too. It's kind of frustrating from a fantasy standpoint because Montgomery actually has good off-speed stuff. He can get a lot of swings and misses if he's trying to get strikeouts. But either way, a 22% strikeout percentage is still the third highest mark on this slate. Only a 5% walk percentage. So doesn't put a lot of extra guys on, doesn't waste those pitches. 3.5 xFIP. He's just a good pitcher in a really good spot. It is also only supposed to be 76 degrees in St. Louis. Obviously, it's nice weather. It's relatively warm, but it is, I think, worth noting when you have 85, 87 degree games on the East Coast, because when it gets to that temperature in St. Louis, the ball absolutely flies, but it's not supposed to be quite that hot there today.
So crazy that Bumgarner is like almost 3 years younger than I am. And the guy's been in the league since 2009.
You said Bumgarner?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Wait, he's my age?
He's 33 years and 8 months. How nuts is that?
Dude, I thought he was like 38.
Me too. I know. It's crazy. I mean, I thought Lincecum's been out of the league for how long now?
A while. But so Bumgarner debuted one of the years Lincecum won the Cy Young, I think.
Right, but it's just funny. Lincecum was only in the league for 9 years. Was that an injury? I can't remember.
I think it was injuries. I don't remember. He had stuff just kind of get derailed.
I only mention it because Bert said people shit on Mad Bum, but he's washed earlier than expected because he was an absolute horse in the playoffs, winning rings. I mean, he had literally a decade. He had over a decade of good seasons. Yeah.
I mean, Bumgarner I don't think Bumgarner faded earlier than expected in terms of, I guess to his point, in terms of workload. He faded
8 innings.
What?
He 8 innings, dude.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like he faded in terms of age, but like the dude's got a lot of wear and tear.
Yeah, he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 straight years with 200+ innings pitched. That's gonna wear on a guy for sure.
Yep, and that's just regular season.
What's that? That's just the regular season. Yeah.
Yeah.
One other thing I wanted to mention, and then because short show today, you had mentioned in chat. You said every offense, but you were responding to someone talking about how, like Toronto stack always busts or something. You said every offense busting is a common theme in MLB DFS. They're the most likely team to succeed, and they're still about 85% not to. It is a good point to make when you look at it and you go, man, this team, any team, looks great in the top stacks tool at 15 or 16%. But like you said, that's still 84, 85% probability that they aren't the top stack team.
Right. Like the highest you're ever going to get on any normal size slate is like when you get I think we had it with the Cardinals last series in Colorado. Like there was a slate, I think, where they were, 24, 25%. They're still not being the top stack 75% of the time. And, obviously when you factor in value, that doesn't necessarily mean they aren't still the best stack. Like if they're the cheapest and then up scoring the second most runs or second most fantasy points, they're still helping you win. But yeah, like it's the top stack is going to fail so often. And that's why, like, I mean, Sean V does it the most and we give him shit for it. But like, you'll talk about liking some team and, chat in general will be like, oh, well, I don't think they're going to do well. And then they don't do well. And it's like, oh, see, I was right. It's like, if you pick any team on any given slate and you say, I don't think this offense is going to do well, you're going to be right. Like 80+% of the time, regardless of who the team is.
Especially not do well in context of winning a tournament.
Right.
Like to say not do well, they could still score 7 runs, but it's just not it's not a, you like when you get 7 runs, sometimes it's all singles and walks and shit, and it doesn't matter. So yeah, doing well, you need everything to happen for you. But yep, you're right. All right. Did we talk bats yet for St. Louis and for Pittsburgh? Because I think we definitely got to spend a little time on the bats here for the Cardinals.
M the Great said, so how do you stack? You stack the same way you've been stacking. You just understand that there's a lot of variance, and any particular team is way more likely to fail than succeed on a given slate. The Blue Jays, saying the Blue Jays are the top stack is just saying that they are more likely to succeed than every other team. The field is more likely. Like if you could just bet even money on Blue Jays top stack or the field, you're taking the field. But you don't. Oh yeah, that's not an option in DFS. Like you can't just say like, oh yeah, well I'm just going to stack the other 8 teams in this lineup or something. Like it's you still have to just try and put yourself in situations to win, and that's why the ownership comes in. That's why we always talk about the ownership going into a stack versus their chances of succeeding. It's all relative to each other, but it's just pointing out that the top stack is still going to fail way more often than it's going to be the top stack.
Yep. St. Louis bats today, second highest top stack probability, second highest top stack score. 14%. No real leverage. No, I mean, look, 15.6% ownership share on this stack, 14% top stack probability. So again, nothing really that crazy. Not a bad spot against Velasquez. You mentioned the weather could be impactful here as far as the heat goes. What do you want to do with these bats? Are there any guys on either side, Pittsburgh going up against the Southpaw or the Cardinals bats against Velasquez, that you really like today?
Yeah, I mean, I like the Cardinals in general. Velasquez gives up power. It's still decent hitting conditions. It's just not as warm as on the East Coast. They have the second highest top stack percentage at 14%, fourth highest stack score. That's, again, the one referencing value as well, behind Toronto, Cincy, Detroit. Detroit, that's just because they're so cheap. But in terms of teams that I'd want to get to, I think St. Louis is still a top 3 team. Velasquez gives up power to both sides. Like, we said when we talked about him, you have a 5.4 implied run total for the Cardinals. Goldschmidt, Arenado, Contreras, Gorman, O'Neill, Walker, these guys all have a ton of power. You're likely to have Donovan and Burleson at the top of the order at reasonable price tags as well. Cardinals look pretty good here.
Any bats for Pittsburgh?
No.
Okay. Yeah, clearly not an enticing team today at all. Milwaukee, San Diego Padres. Have you seen a starting pitcher from Milwaukee yet?
So I'm seeing Bryce Wilson listed, which is weird because he's been working out of the bullpen and threw 2 innings on the 10th. I haven't seen anything confirmed. If it's Wilson, I assume he's just opening. We have Lauer, but in projections, but I don't know.
How much can we really do with this right now, given what we don't know?
Not much. I will say if it is Bryce Wilson, I have no interest. If it is Eric Lauer, I don't really have interest. I mean, we can say they're facing the Padres, and I probably don't have interest.
For sure. We could also say that you're getting 50% off all of the tools that we have if you wanted to get in on that. We referenced the top stack tool, the top pitchers tool. I mean, for MLB, we have so much stuff. The top batters tool, Slate Central, the lineup builder, all of that stuff, ownership projections, player projections, everything you can think of. But if you're looking to go in on everything, whether it's, basketball with the playoffs coming up, the contests are going to be huge. NHL still, PGA, MMA, NASCAR, tennis, like everything out there, we got you covered, and you're getting half off anything you want, whether it's 1 week or 1 month of one sport or every single sport on the site. If you go with the month, of course, you can add the Fantasy Cruncher add-on onto that, but you're getting 50% off no matter how you cut it. So perfect time to get in the door. Other sites, I'm seeing some like 15% off and stuff. This is 50% off your first month because we're confident that you're going to win. And in doing so, if you're winning, you're going to want to stick around. You're going to want to join the Stochastic family around here. That's just how it works. Our premium Discord is included in all of this as well. So check it out. 50% off everything, whether you just want to do baseball or you want to get in on all these other sports. And the great thing, you don't actually need to know. You don't need to know all these sports to be able to be competitive once you have the tools, which is a huge, huge advantage, especially if you're playing in smaller stakes, larger stake, doesn't matter. We got you covered on all fronts with all tools, 50% off any package, link in the description and in chat. All right. So we have Nick Martinez going for San Diego, right? He's definitely listed.
Yeah.
Let me start here. Do you like Nick Martinez today against Milwaukee?
Not particularly. He's playable. He's pulling 21% ownership on DraftKings, 24% chance of being top 2 pitcher. FanDuel, 12% ownership, 11% chance of being the top scoring pitcher. Kind of surprised that he's higher than Bassett there, but it's not a big gap between them. Bassett offering more value on FanDuel, but he's just one of those guys where on a normal size slate, you would pretty quickly write him off. On this slate, he is playable. I'm not overly confident in him. He's not a great strikeout pitcher. 19.9% strikeout percentage, 12% walk percentage since the start of last year, 4.5 xFIP. Gives up some power as well, but does seem like he ran a little bad there. 176 actual ISO to lefties, 146 expected last year. Righties, 155 expected ISO. Yeah, he's kind of just a very, very mediocre pitcher on a slate that we don't really have great pitching.
Just pulling up right now. So we don't know. Could this just be a full out bullpen game?
For Milwaukee? Yeah, I think so.
Presumably, yeah. But it has a 9-run total. San Diego Padres, decent favorites here. What is their implied total, their run total?
Just shy of 5.
Yeah, sitting right around 5. So let's wrap it up talking about some San Diego bats. The only problem is, are we getting them against the bullpen? Are we getting them against the lefty? It's really hard to say right now, but we do know that they have a 5-run total and a lot of power in this lineup.
Yeah, I think just from a general standpoint, it's just the Padres are really good. Grisham, Machado, Soto, Bogaerts, Cronenworth, Carpenter. There's just so many guys you can go to in this lineup. Really, regardless of who they're facing, it's still going to be a really high upside spot. Right now, they are 4th in top stack percentage, going a little bit over-owned, but nothing too crazy there. This would be 5 days for Eric Lauer. He last pitched on the 8th, so maybe they're opening with Wilson and then going to Lauer. I'm not sure, but one way or the other, the Padres are going to be a high upside stack just based on how good they are. I don't think they're quite as good as some of the other stacks we've talked about. It is 53 degrees in San Diego, so you're getting cool weather there on a slate where you have warm weather in Yankee Stadium. You have a game in Rogers Center. You have warm weather at least relatively warm weather in Cincinnati and then St. Louis. And then you just get 50 degrees in San Diego. It's certainly betting on the talent in the Padres lineup, but there's not a lot of other factors standing out that make them look good.
Top pitcher not named Nick Lodolo today.
Chris Bassett. I think it's between him and Montgomery.
Top stack, not St. Louis or Toronto.
Top stack, not St. Louis or Toronto. Cincy.
Okay.
God, that's hard to say.
It is. Bailey Falter, though. I mean, you're not exactly scared of that guy.
Yeah, he is one of the weaker pitchers on the slate. I was looking at them and the Yankees because the Yankees are a little bit lower owned, but they're also a lot more expensive.
You can follow Adam at Ship My Money DFS, me at Lafayette_D. Come hang out on their chalkboard. We're in there hanging all day long, all the time. People always talking, chatting. Good community, supportive one at that. We'd love to have you come join us. What else? Oh, you got the deeper dive. You got Live Before Lock. You got Odd Shop coming up on the Odd Shopper channel today. I'm looking at some amazing props that are already out for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday games. Awesome opportunities to jump on them for basketball if you guys are into that type of thing. Until then, though, we'll see you back here tomorrow on the MLB Strategy Show. I believe it'll be Neil and Adam. I'll be back on the NBA Strategy Show with Josh, and we'll catch you then. Peace.